Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. I'm Ini John McQuarrie. We start from the global space where oil prices edged lower on Friday as investors focus on forecasts of ample supply and stronger expectations of higher demand next year from Chinese stimulus measures, while eyeing another Federal Reserve interest rate cut, which is expected next week after that interest rate number came out 2 days ago. Look at the numbers for this morning. We see a drop in Brent this morning, lost 8 cents to $73, about what it was this time yesterday, still hovering around $73, right? The WTI is also down $69.95 a barrel. That's what WTI is. And the International Energy Agency expects non-OPEC Plus nations to boost supply by about 1.5 million barrels per day next year, driven by United States, Canada, Guyana, Brazil, and Argentina. 3 of Canada's biggest oil producers forecast higher production next year. And building on record production in the United States, Goldman Sachs expects a lower 48 shale oil production to grow by 600,000 barrels per day also next year. So it looks like 2024 is getting out of the way. For 2025, we see more forecasts at this time. Now let's look at our Naira. We saw appreciation, a bit of recovery from the loss we had the previous trading session. So we see for this morning a good recovery for NFAM, went up 0.84%. Opened at 1,545 naira, but closed yesterday 1,532 naira, while NAFEM also went up even more than that. So it went from 1,549 naira 29 kobo to 1,447 naira 45 kobo. Of course, we know it's thanks to activities at the EFM, the newly created platform by the Central Bank of Nigeria, which has seen the central bank intervene even more than before, even though economists are still asking that the central bank will make it more certain, when to expect their intervention. Tier 1 lender Access Bank PLC has signed an agreement to acquire a 100% stake in South Africa's Bidvest Bank Limited. The deal, announced by Access Holdings, is set to be completed in the second half of 2025, pending regulatory approvals. The Chief Executive Officer of Access Bank, Roosevelt Ogbonna, says that the acquisition aligns with the bank's goal of expanding across Africa and strengthening its presence in key markets like South Africa. He describes the move as part of the bank's strategy to enhance operational efficiency and solidify its role as Africa's gateway to global markets. And we see Access has been doing a lot of acquisition in these past weeks. Now we head to Rivers State, where the Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture has inaugurated Dr. Chinyere Nwogu as its very first female president since it was founded in 1957. Well, it took us a long time to get here. And she's, Dr. Nwogu, saying, stressing the need for government to partner the chamber to improve economic situation in the state. Also, at her inauguration, the state governor, Similalayi Fubara, is pledging support to the activities that would create employment and ease of doing business in the state.
We as a chamber will continue to anchor on ideas that will yield economic development and prosperity, access to quality education, quality health services, adherence to the rule of law, protection of life and property. As a matter of fact, these are the fundamentals of drawing foreign direct investment and even local investments. We are ever willing to participate with governments in pursuit of our common goals and aspirations. The task of nation building is a collective assignment. So, expect us, the chamber movement, to continue to give our unsolicited inputs.
What we need here in this state is the enabling environment, the encouragement, and the support. And the state government that I represent, from what I've been mentioned here, we're doing our best. The only way we can solve the problem of criminality, reduce crime, it is only when we create jobs. jobs will create the opportunity to engage our youth. Job will create the opportunity to create wealth.
Let's go to Niger State, where the governor, Umar Ubago, has presented a 1.558 trillion naira budget for the 2025 fiscal year to the Niger State House of Assembly. This represents a 48.32% increase compared to the appropriation of 2024. The budget is tagged Budget of Hope for Sustainability and Food Security, and the governor is emphasizing that the budget will prioritize investments in agriculture and infrastructure. The total anticipated budget for 2025 is expected to be higher by almost 49%. The budget breakdown reveals 196.335 billion, that's about 13% of the budget, will be allocated for recurrent expenditure, while staggering 1.36 trillion, that's about 87% of the budget, will be dedicated to capital expenditure. And now to an area that I know concerns you. In 2022, the poultry bird population in Nigeria had hit a total of 249 million heads. That's according to Statista, and that's slightly higher than the counts in the preceding year. By 2023, the value of that industry was pegged at about $4.2 billion. However, issues such as maize shortage risk further growth in that. We also have the issue of egg glut and all of that. So now let's delve into this issue, especially this is a time when if you cannot do the cattle, then you want to do the poultry for Christmas and for the New Year, for the holiday generally. Let's talk to the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Faco West Africa. They are into poultry equipment manufacturing. His name is Mr. Femi Adelayo. Mr. Adelayo joins us right here in the studio. Mr. Adelayo, good morning. Is it too early to say compliments of the season? Should I wait till next week?
No, that's fine, Ini. Compliments of the season to you.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good. But this is not a good time for, these guys, because a lot of them get slaughtered. But unfortunately, this year, as in other aspects or sectors of the economy, hasn't been a pleasant one. There's been increase in prices. The feed mill has been a very big one. It was the year before, but I mean, like it got even worse this year. You are in the industry. Please paint the picture for us. What's really going on, the issue of feed mill, and why we are buying eggs at such an expensive price at this time.
Ini, really, as a manufacturer, as a producer also of poultry feed, and as a supplier in the value chain of the poultry and the livestock sector in Nigeria, it's a difficult time for us and for most people in this industry. I mean, the simple picture is the raw materials, right? The raw materials. The two main important ingredients of the poultry feed is maize and soya. And for example, the price of maize and soya has gone up to about almost 200 to 250% increase over the past year. And you would imagine how expensive that is. It translates back into the feed. That makes the cost of the eggs or the cost of the chicken more expensive. There's the cost of financing, there's the cost of transportation, and a whole lot of other things. So, look, I mean, Christmas is here. Everybody wants to buy chicken or something or turkey, but at the end of it, it's going to get a bit more expensive, but we hope that, some also those who sell can be kind to the consumers and then sell at the best price possible.
Yeah, best price differ, I guess. But I think one way of solving this will be if we increase supply of the raw materials. You talked about maize. Are there ways to increase the supply, of the soya that you talked about? They're possible. I know some people import maize, but isn't it possible for us to have domestic planted and harvested and processed for feed meal?
We actually do have maize planted and processed in Nigeria. We have soya. In fact, I tell you, and I kid you not, Nigerian soya is one of the best in the world, really. Absolutely one of the best in the world. But the challenges that farmers face, including the funds farmer header crisis, even sometimes the quality of the soil, access to fertilizer, and another important one, storage, grain storage, which is also one area that FACO West Africa plays absolutely so well. Because in the past, we've even installed some grain storage silos for the strategic grain reserve, but you need to have enough storage, you need to have production for you to have storage. Nigeria currently produces about 10 million tons of maize per year. We need to get that to about 25 million tons of maize per year because it is not enough. Human beings are competing with animals for the maize and for the soya. And normally in the competition between man and animal, the man will always win. So we need to increase our capacity. We also need, as an industry and as a people, to get alternatives into the feed production. There's a lot of research going on in Nigeria. A lot of research has gone, but there has to be a synergy, a handshake between the town and the gown. And we can't keep working in silos. We have to make sure that we have the research to make sure the feed is available, and then the eggs will be cheaper, and then the meat will be cheaper. Another important thing is automation and mechanization. Look, there are millions of Nigerians who are backyard farmers, and that is absolutely good because it is the livelihood of many farmers. But we have to get to a place where we scale up the capacity. This is an area where FACO West Africa is also very good at. We've been here for 47 years.
When you say scale up, you talk about mechanization and automation. Technology obviously is leading the pace in every facet of life at this time. But when yesterday I had a conversation that's similar to this with an executive from Olam. They are big, and they keep saying, well, let's leave the mechanization to the big guys. So I ask, and I pose this to you too, because of the issue of cost. You talk about mechanization or automation. These are very capital-intensive ventures. The smaller guys cannot do it. So what's the reality? How do we get it to them? I don't think we can make it for this Christmas. Maybe by next Christmas or so, we would be able to. But what can we do at this time to bring this mechanization and automation into the mainstream of poultry production to boost our outputs?
Fantastic question, Ini. I mean, this is one area where I believe that conversations and partnerships are very important. It's an area that we're open to speak to people, to speak to government, to speak to private investors on how we can translate the mechanization. There are different levels of mechanization, right? Now, there are some farms that can have 1 million birds. There are some farms that can have 100,000 birds. There are some farms that can have 50,000 or 40,000. And same thing for the poultry, the piggery, and the cattle in the same areas where we work. It's important that everyone who hears and knows about the importance of poultry understands and finds their level. Look, you cannot continue to grow chickens in little quantities and feed the country. The large guys, the middle guys, mechanizing can reduce the cost. So that's the way to go. It requires funding. It requires poultry clusters, cattle clusters, swine clusters, area we work well in. It requires silos and grains. It requires feed mill solutions that ensure that there is availability. It requires veterinary doctors. It requires animal scientists. It requires everyone. But we can't say, look, leave it to the big guys. Because if you, for example, leave everything to the big guys, as you call them, who have the big investments and all the big money, they will come. They will do what they can do, but then at what expense? Whose expense? We're Nigerians, Ini. We're Nigerians. We absolutely have to invest and build in Nigeria. We need to change the mindset. The mindset that tells us we have to keep doing things small is absolutely unacceptable, personally, for me. So I believe that we need to look at the big picture for Nigeria. I mean, people will come in from outside the country, and it's brilliant, it's fantastic. But Nigerians have to do the work for Nigerians to leapfrog this country into where it ought to be. Absolutely, I believe that.
So it does sound like you keep talking about collaboration. Are you referring to the public, private, or you're talking about business, or, which one do you think is easily attainable at this stage? Because the reality is the government's hands are full, at this time. And it does seem that there's a whole lot of fund available in the private sector there are a lot of people who want to increase, their investments and all of that, but getting them to buy into it seems like a difficult task.
Yeah, I think there are two things to it, really. First things first, yes, the government has its hands full. So the government needs to be able to create the policy and the enabling environment to ensure that...
Are they doing that? Would you say they are doing that?
I believe they're on the right track. I mean, with the creation of the livestock ministry, the minister is an amazing person. He's an experienced farmer. He's a humble person from what I see and hear. And I believe that he's able to translate the president's vision into the mission for the livestock industry. So I think they're on the right track. The policy needs to be right. Now, there has to be an engagement of the private sector because quite a number of people don't understand agriculture, especially in business, as they do in other parts of it. Brick and mortar is fairly straightforward, but agriculture is different. It requires patient capital. It requires low interest. It requires a deeper understanding. You can't go into agriculture and expect to get the same kind of returns in the capital market, but you have to be in it for the long term, because that's how we're going to feed this country. 250 million going to 400 million in 2015. 2050, it's a sector you can't lose, absolutely. But the businesses have to understand that, look, you have to invest in agriculture. Poultry, cattle, beekeeping, rabbitry, swine, the whole thing is there. But it requires understanding, it requires conversations, it requires partnerships with companies, Nigerian companies, foreign companies. It requires collaboration with groups and stakeholders to ensure that we get this done. But we can't sit in our homes and then don't put our money where our mouth is and then say, oh, the price of chicken is expensive, the price of egg is expensive. It requires investment in it, absolutely.
It sounds like there's a responsibility here, a major one for the Bank of Agriculture. But I mean, that is one bank, agency, institution, I don't know what to call them, that has been very quiet. There was a talk of recapitalization for that bank, but I mean, we hardly, I've sent a lot of invitation to the managing director of the Bank of Agriculture, at least here and behind the scenes, and it doesn't seem that even the executive there are even ready to take up this responsibility.
Well, I cannot speak for the Bank of Agriculture, but it's one bank. Right?
But it's a major one that could be an instrument from the government side.
So what about the bank for livestock? Right? If you have a bank for agriculture, why can't we have a bank for livestock?
You don't think there'll be duplication?
No, I absolutely don't think so. And here's why.
Can't we have a department of livestock in the Bank of Agriculture?
Yeah, that's a possibility. But if you have if there's a livestock ministry, right? You need to understand, if you take it out of the ministry, right, and then you need to find out that, okay, you need exact funds for this. What the livestock sector needs, right, is different in most way, shape, or form than what the agriculture sector needs. Yes, we have the inputs from the grains from the agriculture, but what we need or what the livestock sector needs is different. But here's the point I'm actually making, Ini. There's a Bank of Agriculture that clearly needs to do more. Maybe they are doing it. Maybe the message is not getting out there. Maybe they need to come and meet you and talk to you. But there has to be other players, other financial institutions in this area as well. Getting low interest rates, getting long-term capital, getting extension workers and desk officers that actually understand agriculture. There are quite a few banks that I can tell you beyond the Bank of Agriculture that have conversations like this. But then we need to know that the conversation and the action, they meet in the same place.
All right, so what do you see? I mean, Christmas is a couple of... Can we just say we are going to have prices stable at the rate we have now? Is there any possibility, perhaps if new demand comes in, there's going to be higher prices for Christmas?
Well, right now, what I would tell you about the Christmas season is, well, I don't know. I mean, that's the honest answer. Because the cost of things are already expensive. Are they still going up?
Oh, I thought we had gotten to at least a level where we can say it is high, but this is where it to be, at least for this festive season.
We can't say, because here's the thing. most feed millers or most feed mills have a price for the feed currently. Now, the law of demand and supply then would mean that the seller would sell at the price. Last year, most people couldn't sell their chickens because it was too expensive. So perhaps some farmers or some merchants would find out that, okay, if we had all kinds of chickens that we couldn't sell because people couldn't buy, then perhaps we need to keep the price at a point. So I think that will be, business wisdom to keep the price at a point. But then it also means that a lot of farmers raised less chickens last year than they did this year. And that's, that's even from personal experience, because those who raised chickens for Christmas, if they didn't sell last year, they would take down the quantity this year. So, but I do hope that they will have a price cap, and that we can sell at a price that most people can afford and celebrate the Yuletide season. Yeah,
I hope so too. And you did say you're happy with the ministry that's just been created, the Ministry of Livestock, even though some people have said, well, do we really need to do that? That extra expenditure running it, that comes into government coffers. But you are happy. What are you expecting, or what do you see by this time next year?
Well, what I hope.
Not what you see or what you've heard.
What I hope.
Okay.
What I hope. Because I've actually had the opportunity to engage in passing with them, and then also to see some of the work the Presidential Livestock Implementation Committee has worked on, which is the group that was primarily set up to create the livestock ministry, and some of the recommendations. And I can tell you that it is robust. Like some of the initial actions that is required is setting up the livestock ministry. So I believe that's the first step. The next step would be to have engagement of all stakeholders and all partners. And I believe that the ministry, if funded, not only from government, but also from the private sector if necessary, like you can fund a program, fund a project, fund an initiative, whether from the World Bank, from the FAO, and other donor partners, fund projects that are necessary. I believe that in the next 1 year, it will make a difference. Now, here's the important thing in it. There are countries like Saudi Arabia that are already asking Nigeria to produce beef for Saudi Arabia to export to Saudi Arabia. So we don't have a choice. We have to get it done.
Well, I hope so, because we do have great policies, great ideas, explained and out there. Or actually, when it comes to the implementation, for us to see the benefits and meet up with those expectations and potentials, it seems far-fetched from us. So, well, I'll believe with you and hope with you that this time next year we'll have a different conversation on this.
I hope so too. And we here at FACO, we're here to partner with anyone to ensure that we achieve the goals for national development and food security. We work with that too.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Femi Adila. You're the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of FACO West Africa.
Thank you, Ini.
All right, so let's do a little bit of market before we head back to the Sunrise Daily team. Yesterday, the All Share Index closed in the green. That's the second green trade that we did yesterday. The All Share Index is getting closer to the 99,000, but it's not yet there. But this is really, really close to the 60 trillion. That'll be a green Christmas. What do they call it? Santa coming to the NGX? We hope so. And then for the activity of yesterday, it was all green, from volume to value and the deals. Yesterday, we seem to have sustained high level of deals in the market. So 8,000 plus is what we had yesterday, sustaining around that area. Looking at the sectors, let's see, only banking was down yesterday in the red, but consumer goods, industrial goods, insurance, and our darling at this time, oil and gas. Aradel back to it. O&O, these seem to be catching the attention and drawing the pockets of investors at this time. So oil and gas for a third trading session, recording impressive gains right there. Top trades yesterday, FCMB, eTransact, and HM Core. Those were the top trades at the close of trade yesterday. So let's just hope that this momentum is sustained at the close of trade today, so we can hit that 60 trillion naira and have investors smiling into the festive season. That's all we'll take at 1 p.m. I'll be back to take you around the world of business. In 55 minutes, we'll do intraday market numbers also at that time, so you don't want to miss it. Make it a date with me. I'm Ini John Mekwa, handing you back to the Sunrise Daily team.